Good day, everyone. We are now live again. Hopefully this is working okay on your end. I am in a different location today, and it's my internet is always a bit shoddy here. So hopefully we will have access. And I'm going to record right now as well so that we are still recorded. And so this week's topic is really interesting because one of the things that, you know, when we're looking at relationships specifically, we always feel like relationships are so complicated. And 99% of the time they really are, for one reason and one reason only. Most often relationships are really complicated because we ourselves haven't sorted our shit out, for lack of a better term. We haven't done the inner work. We haven't taken the inner journey. I've met with people over the years that have been like, I don't have anything to review in my past, for example. The past is over. It doesn't apply to me now. And as soon as someone says that to me, I know that they've disconnected so much from their past that it's so painful, they don't even look at it. Or their logic tells them that they're done. I love that one. Oh, my head, I figured this all out in my head. Our head is such a simple little machine. It's, you know, our conscious thinking, stinking brains are just so limited. They're just limited. And for many of us, people don't want to admit that. We want to look at these things differently. We want to be able to say, hey, you know, my head is a superpower. In fact, culturally, we tell people that it is. But it's such a fallacy. And so one of the hardest things in relationships is to really decide, like, okay, I'm having these problems in this relationship. What of these problems are theirs and what of them are mine? And most times we try to look for things outside of ourselves. And this is a really important aspect to understand around the theory of Ahava. I've been studying this for 30 years. I've looked at 30 different therapeutic processes, 12 different academic theories. I can tell you unequivocally that when the ego is in charge of our lives, it is mass destruction. It is a mess. At first, it feels like, oh, this is amazing. You know, my ego does so many wonderful things for me. Look at the mountaintop I'm on. And I've worked with celebrities over the years, and I can tell you that their ego definitely probably got them there. But in terms of happiness and peace and sustaining that, no. They're disconnected from the soul. And it's hard to surrender this brain that we have because we put this brain in charge of our lives the moment we had our first pain points. When we experienced pain as a child under the age of 10, we then deferred to our brain. We said, oh, our brain must have this all lock and key. I don't want to feel my feelings. I don't want to be in my emotion. And the moment that we decided we couldn't be because the pain and the trauma was so intense, we surrendered the path of our life to the stinking thinking. And all the stinking thinking does is take you outside of your inner self to look at everything around you. You need situations for these to be true. Oh, look at what they did. I can blame them for this feeling. I have this feeling, they're responsible. So when people say we have problems in our relationship, the very first thing I always ask is, have either one of you done any work to heal? And you usually get a bit of a blank stare. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I see a therapist. How long have you been at the therapist for? Sometimes they'll say to me, 5, 6, 7 years, and my response is fire them. If you are still seeing the same therapist 5, 6 years later, and you still have all these major problems in your relationship, chances are you created a codependent relationship with that therapist. And yes, you should fire them. Because if you haven't taken us into your being and now moved on from what that initial therapist could give you and really dove in further and further and further, and 6 years later, you're still saying the same story and thinking the same thing, yeah, that's stinking thinking. Just because you go to a therapist doesn't mean you're actually healing. In fact, in many cases, it can pacify and enable you to stay exactly the same. The code within the world of therapy has some rules, and I come from that world and I totally appreciate and respect that. But if you want to take a true inner journey, you need to get to the bottom of why you have emotional pain in the first place. which means you do need to examine the past. You need to see what was planted in you and is a live, active ingredient that comes alive in all of your relationships, romantic and otherwise. So this is how this works. Before your 10th birthday, you had emotional pain. That emotional pain, you buried it within yourself, and you decided, no matter the age, under the age of 10, I can't feel this again. This was so traumatic and so painful. I'm just going to stuff it within myself and continue on with my life. And you move further and further and further away from that. And you choose to live further and further in your head and your ego under the illusion that you're in control of your life. And that's an illusion. And you feed this beast. Now, in many cases, through the first maybe 20 to 30 years, you can control it. But this is the thing about emotional pain. It will burp, fart, and shit all over your life eventually because it's trying to get your attention. It wants to leave the body. And if you are still becoming activated by human beings around you, and you don't have a clear sense of boundaries, and you are looking at your relationship and it has problems, then chances are you are living out this pain body experience. And this is why I loved Eckhart Tolle. You know, the book was really hard to read, The Power of Now. He's written several because it's kind of a heavy book. And I always say you should only read it, one chapter at a time. But he said, really look at your life situations. If you look at your life situations, we have a feeling, and then we look in our conscious brain for evidence for that feeling to exist. We can't just have it for the sake of having it. We can't just be in that feeling and just feel it. We have to look for shame, blame, situations. You did this, look at this. You didn't put the toilet seat down. You're this, you make me feel like this. We spend all this time looking at other people to either solve our pain. Oh my God, he loves me, she loves me. Now my pain's never gonna happen again because, I'm wanted by somebody. And I wasn't wanted as a child, but now I'm wanted. So now they want me. So therefore, this pain is over until, of course, that drug stops working. Because this is the thing about emotional pain that lives in the body. It's alive, working, built into your system, attracting everything into you because it wants to leave. It does want to be healed. And unless you're actually traveling within the self to pluck out that thorn and heal that pain, you will have never-ending problems in your relationship. So whether it's the person you're with today or a person 5 years from now, it's a predictive cycle. At first, it's great, it's euphoric. And then eventually, guess what? Wears off, stops being effective. And then we start to poke holes in it. Oh, he's not like he used to be. This is how it was in the beginning, and now they're not like this. And we poke holes and we poke holes until all you have in your relationship is problems. Because to take the inner walk requires courage. I had a couple once come in and to work with me, and she had reached out and she said, you either fix my husband or I'm leaving him. That's what she said to me. Fix him. He's the problem. Fix him. And she was certain about it. And she had her laundry list of all the things that he did wrong. And if you looked at that laundry list, you'd be like, yep, that's an issue. Yep, okay, that's definitely a problem. And when you think about it, you're like, okay, so this person clearly has issues. There was no doubt about it that there were issues. However, when I asked the woman about her childhood, oh no, I'm good, I'm over it, I'm done. I've thought about all of this. I know all of this, I'm perfect, I'm good. That's immediately what her response was to me. I'm all good. He's a problem. Don't you see? I told you this whole story of all the things that he does wrong. And so therefore, these are the problems in our relationship. And if he just goes and fixes himself and fixes all these things, that this will happen. Now, bullshit. Bullshit. And this is the real thing, and it's very hard for some people to hear. If the two of you are together in a relationship, looking at each other and saying it's this person's fault, and that person saying, no, it's this person's fault, both of you have work to do, period. Both of you. One person responds to emotional pain in one way, and another person responds to emotional pain in another way. Both of you are responsible for your side of the street. And if you are spending a lot of time looking on this side of the street, guess what? This relationship is going south immediately. And if you think that you have no responsibility in your side of the street and that you're all good and perfect and they're not, but you're still seeing all the things that are wrong with them, then yes, you are in fact a codependent. And yes, in fact, you are part of the problem. Now, most people don't want to hear that. She certainly didn't want to hear that. Despite working with them, he actually started to get better. He started to really get to the core root of who he was. She, on the other hand, rejected it fully. Rejected it so much that even though she said, I want him to do all these things, and he started to do all these things, she just found a new list. She found a new list and a new list and a new list. And this is what we do to the problems in our relationship. I can assure you of this. If this person goes and does a work and changes everything about themselves to fit what you think needs to change, I can guarantee you, you will find new fucking things. You will. Because as long as you're looking on that side of the street and not focused on your own inner walk, it's not hard to find life situations. It's not hard for them to fall down and fall down and fall down again when you set up a whole bunch of bombs and things for them to trip over anyway. When you are expecting problems, which is really what happens with emotional pain, you will find problems because that's what you expect to happen. And you expect it to happen because it happened to you for the last 20, 30, 40 years. You are waiting for this shoe to drop. And unless you do the inner walk of the emotional journey that requires you to heal, you will slam and walk into that brick wall over and over again. So let's reframe this whole question of, how do I deal with problems in my relationships? The simple answer, take an inner walk. Take a time out on looking on that side of the street and say, what am I doing? Who am I in this? Have I got to my core root? Have I plucked out my own thorn? Have I done the hard work to heal? And if the answer is no, then you know what you need to do. Now, if you're choosing the inner walk and your partner doesn't want to take one, I'm going to tell you right now, this relationship will not work. It will ultimately fail. You will either do one of two things. You will stop your own healing journey to satisfy the partner that you're with because you get afraid. You're afraid to be on your own. You're afraid to see what's on this other side of the moon. Your own pain stops you from moving forward. Your own ego stops you from going through the journey. The other person, if they refuse to do the work, that is a block that there is not enough love in the world to break that block. That block is in them. It's in them. And it's up to them to decide to break through. And if they don't want to, you have to surrender them. You just have to surrender them. Now, I understand people say, well, I have money and, oh, what about the house? And what about the kids? And all of these things, all very true concerns. But at the end of the day, you have to answer the question, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? If it's love that you seek, true, healthy, parallel living love, both people have to be 100% committed to the inner walk of the accountability of self. It's that simple. If both people are not committed, both people, which means you own your side of the street, you own your shit on your side. There is no over here, over here, over here. I don't care what they've done. If they don't own their behavior and you don't own yours, problems in your relationship will continue in perpetuity. It's just a train that's driving right into the cement wall. When you both commit to the inner journey and to the inner walk of healing and take 100% accountability and responsibility for everything that you feel, which means you tend your own garden. Your partner isn't here to tend your own garden. There's one gardener. You have the inner garden. You know where the weeds are. You pluck them out. That's on you. The person on their side of the street equally has to do the same. Because if they let their garden be full of weeds and don't do the inner work, they can only drag you down with them. You cannot drag someone over to the world of healthy. You cannot, no matter how hard you try, pull them. They'll either resent you for being there or they'll decide this isn't for them. Because unless they're really ready to make a commitment within the self, you will both spiral into your codependency, and you will go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So if you really want to heal, there is a process to the inner walk. I wrote it. I needed to write it. I needed to write it because it didn't exist in therapy for me, and it didn't exist in just meditating, and it didn't exist in the Bible, and it didn't exist. Parts of it did, but not the full picture. I wanted the full end to end. Like, how do I start from 0 to 1? Like, how do I go from A to Z? Give me the exact lowdown of what I need to do. So we wrote the steps and the phrase and the phases so that you could go directly from one to another. I spent the last 15 years just seeing if anybody skips a step, and no one skips a step. I don't care who they are. I've met a lot of people. I've been in this journey, and I can tell you no one skips a step. People stop, but they don't skip. They get deterred, but they don't skip. And unless you're really willing to do the full steps, the full 3 phases in the relationship course that we built, you will repeat the same pattern. And so the question is, what do you want? If it's love you seek, you can do this process. If it's real love you seek, I can tell you, you will find a reservoir of unconditional love. And you will never go to the other side of the street. He said this, you make me feel like this. Why aren't you like this? That whole garbage conversation, we're all over it. They're over it. You're over it. That's doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So start today. Take this course. Now, if your partner is not willing to do the inner walk, you're going to have some choices to make. They're choices. See, the thing about being a codependent is we believe we don't have any choices, where all you have are choices. That's all you have are choices. You can choose at any moment to see yourself differently. You can choose at any moment to do the inner walk. You can choose to stay with this person or leave them. You do have a choice. Now, it doesn't mean that the choice is easy, and it doesn't mean that the path ahead is clear. In fact, it's the opposite. It's probably the most unclear, and that's totally on purpose and so beautiful in so many different ways, because when you surrender your life to the soul, magic can happen. When you think you're in charge of your life through this thinking head, you'll see problems. It's really that simple. So take the inner walk today, and the problems in your relationship, if you both commit to the inner walk, will cease to exist. Poof. They evaporate because they really don't matter. At the end of the day, if you are not in a current situation of danger, which means that if you are not in a situation right now where someone is threatening your life or abusing you, those problems mean that that person is so toxic and so unhealthy. They are so addicted and they're so out of control emotionally. That relationship needs to end right now. They need to be sent back to the sea to go do the inner walk. You cannot love someone into healthy. That is the most important thing. You can love them, but you can't love them to the light side of the moon. You can't drag them over to it and demand that they do it, or like the woman who walked into the office and said, fix him, I'm good, I'm solid, I'm perfect. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, oh, we're in for it. And they will go down with this ship fighting. They will tell everyone who's in this, I'm perfect, he's the problem. And they'll sit around with their girlfriends and their friends around the table and say, does all these things, and take zero accountability. Again, not going to work in the long run, because in the long run, you may stay together, but you will be miserable. And why be miserable? Life is too short. Life is too short. And if anything over the last few days has shown us is that life can change in a minute. So what do you want? Isn't it time? Isn't it time? Isn't it time to give yourself a shot? Give yourself a shot at this great life, at great love. Start today. Bye for now. See you next Wednesday. And if you haven't already, please check out our links, join our socials. We have free every week. We have lots of content in there. We also have this amazing relationship course. And if you haven't got a love board yet, get a love board. You need a love board. Everyone should have a love board. So bye for now. See you next Wednesday at noon.